iron, I have glide wax on the ski, but I'll just quickly demonstrate. Tend to run the iron kind of like almost like a virtual contact, where you're kind of touching the base as you apply the wax, but you're not obviously not driving it into the base. And yeah, just kind of letting it sit on top there. Run it down, back up. Try to get a nice continuous bead. The irons, these ones, they have a bevel along the edge and along the back front here. It's a little bit more square. So a lot of people, most people I'd say, like to run it side to side like this. But again, that's personal preference. So ideally we're going to get one consistent pass down the ski. You may have to pick up the front of the iron a little bit if it's catching on the wax. And you want to have molten wax in behind, but not for too long. You should see that harden up pretty quick. You know, shouldn't be much more than like 15 centimeters behind the iron that you still see molten wax. And then often, like the tip tail, you might have to touch it again like that. I got some dirt or something on there. For sure, if you feel any sort of, if there's any little bits of grit or dirt on the iron, then you'll feel that bite into the base. So you should definitely be aware of that. It doesn't feel nice. And then often you have to go back, like it didn't melt here at the tip, so just go back and hit it again a little bit, and maybe just do a second pass a little faster.
I don't know if I missed it. Did you prep the ski at all with like a brush at all?
No, this one actually already had glide wax on.
Okay.
And so I just, rather than scrape and then put on glide wax to scrape again, I just put it right on top.
Is there any pros or not of just like doing a couple of brushes ahead of time? Or?
No, I think that's fine. We'll even use like a steel brush. Let's say after a race, just some passes with a steel brush to help clean, and also maybe remove a little bit of the fluorocarbon that's on there still, just so that next time when you try the skis for testing, there's less influence of that fluorocarbon still on the skis, so it doesn't hurt. I think brushing is good for the skis. Actually, it just helps to remove any little fuzz or hairs from that you may have from use of the ski, or can help to sort of rub out any little dents or scratches, that sort of thing. And yeah, that's one thing you can do if you do end up with some dent or scratch in the ski base, is put on a glide wax and then scrape it while it's quite warm, and that can help to sort of rebound the base, and also if you have a hand structure on there, then that can help to remove that hand structure out of the base again, so you're sort of resetting it back to its original.
What if you have like rock cuts like this?
Yeah, I mean that's you know, stone grinding is the solution, but
I don't know about that.
it can help to you know, basically if it's sort of a dent, like if you ran over a branch or a round rock, then it's going to be sort of pressed into the base, and those are what can rebound. But if it's a real cut from a sharp rock, then you're pretty much...
So you don't fill that in with P-Tex then?
No, we don't. You can try, but chances are it's not going to stay in there forever, especially with, like, always with fluorocarbon use and that sort of thing. If you do try and fill scratches, well, I think it's hard to do a good job, and you got to really like clean the base really well. Maybe prep it with alcohol and stuff like that. But I think your best bet is just to try and eliminate any little sharp bits that have a high profile, and then just proceed. And if it's on one side or the other with a skate ski, then you want to keep that on the outside, like a damaged portion of the base, because inevitably with skate skiing you tend to put more pressure on the insides of the skis. So if there's one ski that has a bunch of damage on one side, then you keep that damage to the outside. So I like to use one of these guys, production waxing. Try to pick up and put down as little as possible the different tools. So I like to keep these in my hand at all times. Start by running down the edges.
How long are you leaving it to cool?
Normally you should leave it at least 10 minutes, I'd say. I'm jumping the gun here a little bit. It depends how much time you have. Like often in sprint races, for example, we'll, you know, if we only have a few minutes, we'll scrape it when it's pretty warm too. But just starting with the skinny end there, because there's a thin one and a thick one there. Pass the thin one, switch it over, bring it back. That should take care of most of it. Scraping, for sure, you're going to have a little bit of rounding at the tip, so you got to sort of visually see and assess how much, where the wax is coming off, and maybe go back. And most of the scraping should be done in the direction of travel, but I think it's fine to do a little bit back and forth. Like sometimes we'll do this sort of thing, but the pressure, I'm pushing down as I push away, and when I bring it back, I almost have no pressure there. So the concept of always going in the direction of travel is good, but I don't think it's like the be-all end-all with brushing and scraping. So I like to use my fingers as a little bit of a guide on the edges here. I also do that when I'm, although this is not a cork for kick wax, but I do that when I'm corking as well. Just using my fingers along the edge of the ski a little bit as a guide. Everybody has their own different style or whatever. So always a little bit at the end there where the tail of the ski turns up, and a little bit harder to get. And then obviously I didn't do a very good job with the groove there, probably because the wax is still quite warm, so it's, so we can go back and finish. Whoops, that's what you don't want to do. Finish off there. It's good to remove the wax from the groove first, because what I did there, I accidentally ran this groove scraper out of the groove onto the ski base, and if there's wax still on the ski, then you're less likely to do any damage there. If you wait and do the groove at the end, then if you do what I just did there, then you may put a little strike into the ski base. And then brushing, pretty vigorous, back and forth. The idea there, I think, is you just want to get all that wax that's still sort of in the structure of the stone grind. You want to remove that. So,
what brush are you using now?
This is a steel brush, and I'd say, as far as a bulk sort of working brush, that's a good one to use. For sure, for the finishing layers, we tend to, and then we'll go to nylon. Just to, it gets a little bit more shiny finish with the nylon, a little bit more of a polish there.
Are you always hand brushing, or are you doing roto?
I like to hand brush.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit faster than having to, because the brush is right there, and rather than having to pick up the drill and get set and run the drill. And with hand brushing too, you can focus a little bit better. Like if there's a really round spot on the tip, you can kind of get in and do one of these, you know, to get a little bit of wax out, and then just keep going.
So are you, like you were showing before, putting more pressure going one direction?
Yeah, I tend to do that. And it's just, with production waxing, rather than going like this, you know, it's a lot faster.
Yeah.
Did you find a difference between the steel and the brass in terms of
like
production?
the steel will definitely remove the wax more quickly.
You're not afraid of taking too much off?
No, when the steel brushes are new, you should be a little bit careful if they're really sharp feeling. It's like, oh, you can kind of have a feeling for how it is, and if it feels like it's really biting, then maybe that's not the best brush to be using on the race skis. Yeah, this groove scraper is kind of done, so it's not doing a super good job of.
If you were doing a brush to prep it before you glide wax, you'd be using the steel brush as well, right?
I think so, yeah. And the idea there would just be to remove any contaminants and dirt and that sort of thing. You can see at the end here, I missed some with the scraper, so often you can get that with the brush. Just like that. And I mean, really what you're trying to do is just remove that glide wax. get it off the ski and reveal the structure. All right, pretty simple. Normally finish with some polishing, and that can also help. Like if there's a little bit of stubborn wax in the groove, for example, then you get in there and especially with the warmer gliders.
So you're not going through the old system that, you know, where you're now using fancy horsehair brushes and
No, we
that
keep it
stuff?
pretty simple. That way, like, just go with the, well, we use either steel or also have brass brushes. So, yeah, it's,
You find that a good one?
You won't polish it up with a nylon?
not at this point, no. If you were racing on the base wax like that, then yes, I think it's a good idea to go finally with the nylon. But I'm about to powder the skis, so I think that's enough.
So just to make sure I understand, then if you weren't putting the powder on, you would be moving through a more polishing stage with the nylon,
I think
ending
it's-
with the nylon?
Yep, that's a
Okay.
good idea. And then doing a really good job with your fiberline or paper towel just to really buff it at the end, sort of create a little bit of heat there to just make sure you have everything off the ski.
What was the wax you put on? I think I missed explaining it.
This wax.
Just
That's just start BM2. That's just something I grabbed from the box. It's a 0 to +10. It's a warm wax. Totally not suited for today.
How long do you spend brushing? Like, do you just spend like a minute on a ski, or?
Well, normally it depends. Like, it's sort of a visual thing. You see, because you can kind of see where there's little bits of wax left on the ski, and so that's why it's pretty important to have a good set of lights or good lighting in your wax room. But yeah, real production waxing, then I mean, typically, something. I don't know how long it takes me to do this, but to go down the ski like this.
But you're not looking for the little powder that's coming off to see
No.
how much is off? And,
No, because there's powder in the brush and that sort of thing. And then maybe finish with a few longer strokes like this.
yeah.
to clean up the dust.
What about these guys for bulk removal? Do you ever use Elijah ones?
Perfect, yeah. We've used those in the past too. And then just polish it like that. And it depends. I mean, if you're just scraping the skis for testing purposes or training, then of course you do a little faster. And you know, if it's for racing at the World Championships, then you're going to spend a little more time. So for the powders, we're going to create a little bit of smoke here, but 160, 165 for the iron. It's good. To make sure the iron's clean.
So you don't go by what the manufacturer recommends. You just put it at 160, 165
Yep.
for all powders.
Yeah. Now some of them they start to say they want, and the new irons I think they go up to 180.
Wow.
And so, but you do have to be careful that you are not going to do damage there.
And some of the cold powders too, they say at a colder temperature, right? It's not hot.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of recommendations
Yeah.
there, but I mean, yeah. I mean, typically for a powder, 160, 165. That's what we're
Okay.
doing. So, whoop, powder. Often you can use a scraper, something to get a good tap there. Whoops. But again, I use my finger to sort of run along the ski. Switch it. The powders can kind of clump up inside the can sometimes, so you may have to open it up and stick a pencil in there or something, or one of the thin groove scrapers. Good idea to go back and just, you missed a few little spots.
Are you fairly generous with the powder, or?
I would say this is not being super generous, what I have here now. I think probably that's a lot. Often people are not generous enough. They're skimping a little bit, and I mean, there's a budget perspective there, but again, like I said, with the rotocork, you want to have enough fluorocarbons on the ski that you're sort of pressing it on and dispersing it, but you're not actually removing it and peeling it away. So
If you watch the Swick's ski school, he just lathers it on there.
yeah,
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Well, that's the way you should do it then, I guess, right?
One tube does 4 skis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to not be too shy there, for sure. I mean, prioritize, but you also, there's a little bit of an insulating quality of the powder between the iron and the base as well to be considered, so you're not putting the hot iron directly on the base. Tap it down. This is the really smoky section. And then draw it back. And ideally you have pretty good clean black finish there, not too much extra powder visible.
Nice flat ski.
That's brand new.
Yeah. Not a lot of our skis look like that.
Yeah, flat skis take a lot less heat.
So
Go back and maybe touch a little bit of the, but you don't want to ever spend too long with the iron in any one spot. There, and oh, that's totally what I forgot is the rotocork.
now that first pass that you did, we were rotocorking right after the first pass, so where you know, you just heat it and then rotocork it right after that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty good to set it in there with the iron. Like if you just kind of tamp it down, it's just kind of fixing it so you don't end up pushing it off of the ski as you iron. And I think it's good to get that one reasonable pass with the iron, just to really sort of set it in there with some decent heat, and then I gotta pull out my rotocork here, so I knew I was forgetting something.